Hi everyone, Don Giannetti, Lighting Essentials, and I'm here today with photographer David Harry Stewart, uh, based in Los Angeles, previously in New York, and we're glad to have you here,
Thanks,
David.
Don. Good
It's
to
a
be here.
blast to talk to you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me on.
Give us a little of your background. Where
Yeah,
did
sure. I grew up in a small farm town in western New York, um, and very rural. I didn't have a lot of I didn't have a lot of cultural exposure, and I went to school in Rochester, New York, for a couple of years, where I met people that were slightly different than I was, but kind of the same. Um, and I did a couple of years of mechanical engineering there, and then I left and I moved to Boston, and I did a couple of years of liberal arts there, and I graduated from Boston University, and then I started my photography career there because the story is that um, the first 2 years of engineering school that I went to was probably still the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It's like joining the Marine Corps. It's unbelievably difficult. Um, and going from there to like a major city university and studying liberal arts, it was like nothing. It was like a walk in the park. So I had a lot of extra time and brain energy, and I had always been interested in photography, and I had a camera. I think I'd taken some classes at the Visual Studies workshop in Rochester, and then there's a small photography school in Kenmore Square in Boston called New England School of Photography,
Oh, yes.
and I went there. I went to night school there for 2 years while I was also in at Boston University, and I took the same class for 2 years. I took color photography with Tom Pettit, and Tom helped me be able to see. And I, as a photographer, it's really the there's some technology involved in what we do. Technology is really important. But the crux of the matter is learning how to see, and that's the really hard part. So that was really helpful, and then I started assisting there, and I wasn't a very good assistant. I found it kind of boring, and then I think I started my business. I was like 23 or so, and I started working for the magazines there, and then the department stores, and then when I was 24, I had my first. I'd done a few big ad campaigns, and then I was doing stuff, ads that were appearing in Vogue and the other big magazines, and then I moved to Paris, and I worked for the magazines there for a few years.
Now,
Um,
is this mostly
and
fashion or?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's mostly what I was doing there. It's like fashion and that advertising stuff associated with fashion.
right.
And then I moved to New York. I was about 26 or 27, and then that was the big leagues. So that was like you kind of have to then it was like they didn't care who you were or where you'd been. It was just like what are you doing right now? Because this is New York,
Hmm.
and it was a very humbling experience. And but then I started working for the magazines there. I worked for Interview and a lot of Condé Nast most of the Condé Nast magazines, and then I started kind of moving more into lifestyle advertising. Um, and I've done a lot of advertising campaigns, maybe like 1,000 at this point. Um, and I've worked for pretty much all the big advertising agencies, and the Nikes, the Coca Colas, the American Expresses,
Sure.
Lexus, Toyota, that sort of thing. And I pretty much did that up until 3 or 4 years ago. Um, I got a little tired of that.
So you've created a new project. Part what you say it was a It's a magazine and a community called Ageist.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was something that I started. That was about 3 years ago. I was doing a big ad campaign for a very young person, millennial-oriented ad agency, and I'm not going to give you the names, but it was a big out-of-home campaign for a cellular provider, and we did maybe 60 portraits. It was like a big seven-figure gig, and it was a lot of cities, a lot of people. And at the end of it, I think we shot about 60 people. The parameters on the campaign were you had to be between 18 and 29, and you had to use this particular cell phone provider. At the end of the campaign, I was talking to the people in the agency who ran the campaign, and I said, do you know that of the 60 people that we shot, 59 of them were on their parents' contract? And they said, yeah, we know that. I said, well, okay, that's confusing. So does your client know that? No, we don't tell them that. I said, well, okay, help me understand this. I don't get it. I mean, these people were involved in the decision-making cascade, but they're not really writing the check. I mean, this is like a huge amount of money and effort that was spent here. And they said, well, we don't really know how to talk to the people, the actual decision makers. We just know how to talk to the young people, so that's what we do. It's just like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. So, that's when Ageist started. That was about 3 or so years ago, and it started with compiling a lot of data and statistics and understanding why advertising is so millennial obsessed, and what that's about, and what that's linked to, and the confusions and the misconceptions in that. And then we actually started the project, and the project is one of the first things we had to do was figure out a visual vocabulary for this demo, because it was really bankrupt and broken. The gray-haired people slowly pushing bikes down the beach. I mean, I don't know anything like that.
Yeah, I've seen those, and I've gone, I don't know those people.
Like what's up with that? Like these hideous pleated dockers with the pink shirts and the I don't know what planet that is. It seems like there's this kind of dropout that happens between 35 and Betty White. There's nothing. It's like this black hole. And so we kind of took us a few months to figure out what do we want to say about this group of people. What's our point of view on that? And it really came down to empowerment. That pretty much all of the imagery associated with this group is either medicalized, meaning you have some kind of infirmary, or the advertiser would like you to believe you have an infirmary, or there's something wrong with you. You're somehow disempowered in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I'm not down with that. So you'll notice the Ageist pictures have a very particular POV. People are very strong, and I wanted to make that really clear. And the people that we interview are a certain slice of the demographic that we feel is indicative of leading edge behavior. And so there's the Ageist website, and we do a very popular newsletter we do, and I identify people, and we interview them, and we write up profiles, and we publish these pictures. And the business model on that is that there are only a few ways to earn money in publishing. There's the advertising model, which is based on, if you're doing online, it's based on clicks. And if you go that route, in 2 seconds you're doing cat videos, because you just got to drive the traffic. It doesn't really matter.
That's true.
So we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to do that. And then there's the membership model. But if you're looking to build a community and you have a membership model, what you're doing is just building a barrier to entry. So that didn't work. So we adopted a model whereby we are a end-to-end content creator that we do branded content for people. We help people communicate with this audience, and we have really well thought out um, qualitative we do qualitative analysis on all the interviews, and we build a very robust behavior-based driver model for people's behavior that we can take in, and we go to companies, and they'll say, well, listen, we don't know how to talk to this group, and we say, okay, this is how you talk to them, and this is why, and everything's time coded, and um, we have various media partners that we work with where we syndicate the content, or it'll work within somebody else's media platform. Um, so we work with large. We have a lot of kind of large, globally known clients that we work with, and sometimes they distribute the content through their own platforms, or sometimes we help them pick the platform. Because a lot of times with this demo, it's not even the content that's the question. It's how you're going to distribute the content. Because you make like awesome content, but if like two people see it, so what? So
Sure.
you got to like kind of figure out what that recipe is.
Well, I look at that
Anyway, that's
demo.
ageist.
When I look at that demo, I see the people who have money and means to do things. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, it's a premium demo, absolutely.
yeah, and I've found the same thing with ad agencies and designers focused on uh, a demographic that doesn't necessarily have the funds, and if they're going to university, they have a giant loan anyway. Yeah, so these are the people who actually have the contracts that the people you shot for the other um, uh, job were on.
Yeah, well, I want to say that not everybody. I mean, we have a whole wide range of people that we speak to. So these are not all people with tremendous means. I mean, um,
Sure.
we have a we have a gardener. We have a lot of people that are not making massive amounts of money, but they are premium in their thinking, in that they have a value construct, how they see their lives, which these folks seem to think they're going, and I think with good reason, they feel that they're going to live a very long time, and they're going to have quite a long health span, and so they want to be useful and dynamic and empowered within that span.
Very cool.
And they don't feel as though they're just not done. So they're very self-empowered, and I think that leads them to be discerning in their lifestyle choices and in their purchasing choices.
Ah, excellent. You want to show us a few shots and tell us some backstory?
Yeah, yeah. So the first picture here is Rachel Payne. Rachel was 61 when I shot this picture. Rachel teaches philosophy at Cambridge. She, at 14, was the original Woodstock tie-dye model, living in Greenwich Village in New York. And Rachel will talk to you about Nietzsche and Hannah Arendt. And she's she's like super awesome. So this is like, kind of prototypical ageist empowerment photograph. A lot of my pictures, there's a lot of contrast to them. They, we just want to stay away from that kind of like blah, um, the other stuff that's out there. We don't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah,
We're cool. Basically, we're just cool, Don.
I got it. Um, when I look at your work, I have the feeling that at one time you shot film, David.
Film in a camera, or
Yeah,
film like
remember
movie
that?
film.
Come in little rolls, that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's another thing. I mean, I think that this whole I really kind of dislike this like the Canon 5D look. I mean, I use these cameras, but
Sure.
I do what I can to I actually reduce their tonal range, you know. And the thing about a digital sensor is it's linear, and that just really bugs me. I mean, I think that things are more interesting when they're nonlinear. So these are all, you know, we work on them to give them a little more of um, an organic feel to them.
Yes, I noticed it right off, and I really, really love the look.
Oh, thank you.
Exceptional. When you're out working with these folks, are you with a crew? Are you by yourself?
No,
You and an assistant?
no, that's the other thing. So, you know, that's like that was also a big learning thing about how to do that. So, uh, you know, when I do, you know, like I'll do a pharma campaign, and I'll have my crew will be like 30 people, and you know, the shoot budget is easily $80,000, $100,000 a day, and there's like a lot of prep, and there's like a lot of, you know, there's like a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of moving pieces there. With these, the biggest crew is me plus one, and the majority of them are just me. So I had to figure out like how to do that. You know, what's the what's the simplest, most stripped down technology I can use to make these kind of pictures? So, you know, I have kind of like a standard kind of thing that I do, and there's, you know, there's a little, every picture is a little different, but they all have this commonality of being able to, because there's no budget available here. Like you know, if we do say 50 of these in a year, and you know, if I have a couple of assistants and rent some gear, that's easily $1,000 a day, and you know, bingo, you're at $50,000 just like that. So can't do that. So like, how can I do this for $50? Or, you know, what does that look like? How do I make that happen? So like that's what we've done. And that I found has been fantastic. That, you know, a lot of times people in, you know, in the 90s or the 2000s, people would hire me because I'm like really good with lights and technology. You know, I have this engineering background, so I can be really analytical with that and really figure that out. But if you take all that away, then things get much more direct, and I like that a lot.
I think you can see it in the images too. There's a real accessibility to these people,
Yeah,
and that's brought about by not only by your vision, but by the utter simplicity of the tools you're using. I'm not seeing, you know, I'm a photographer as well, so I'm not seeing, you know, giant soft boxes
oh, I
and
hate that.
cruise.
Yeah, that stuff makes me crazy. Um, I have really strong feelings about, um, you know, that there's a certain kind of picture that's made very easy by the technology that's out there today. Um, and you know, you can get a Profoto head that's TTL and plug it into your Canon and stick it into a box and hold it up, and it's going to work. You know, that stuff works great.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you saying? You know, and my feeling is that light has meaning. All these things, things are all there's like a circular reference to everything. So everything that you see today, whenever you look at a picture, whatever it is, you're not really just seeing the picture. You're seeing the picture through all the other pictures you've ever seen. And that doesn't go for just you and me as photographer. That's like anybody out there.
Yes.
So all this, anything that they're looking at is informed by all this other stuff that they've seen. So, you know, it has meaning. It has like, what does that really say? And, you know, we were talking earlier, about how, my feeling is there really aren't that many people that are that good at this. And the people that are really good at it, they give a lot of thought to that. They can, if you show them like a picture of some kind of light, they'll be able to rattle off like the last like 20, 50, 60 years of what that is referenced from. And because they're conscious of it. These are sophisticated people, and they're very conscious of what they're doing. With people who don't look at this kind of stuff every day, they're not as conscious of it, but it's still in there. It's still in their part of the visual processing part of their brain is that filter. So it's important to keep that in mind.
Yes, it is. I'm always talking about deliberate photography.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's deliberate.
Hmm.
Exactly. Like, and I people ask me I speak fairly often at schools, and they'll put some pictures up, and I'll just say, like, why did you do that? Like, what's up with that? Why did you decide to do that? And, they'll be like, oh, well, and it's like, no, like, this needs a reason. Like, there needs to be a reason for this. And if there's not a reason for it, you need to do it again when there is a reason for it.
And you can tell pretty quickly when there's a reason and when there isn't.
Right, right,
You
right.
have
Especially when you start chaining things together. Like, you have like one picture, okay, that's one thing. But if you start chaining together weeks, months, years of pictures, people who know what they're doing, it all makes sense. There's like a visual cohesion to the whole thing.
we have a friend in common, Selena Maitreya, and
Sure.
Selena talks about a body of work versus a box of pictures.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's so well said.
Yep. Um, well, you've been doing this for quite a while, and you've seen some changes not only uh, in the ad business, and there have
Yeah.
been huge changes because I've been doing it just a little longer than you, but never to the level you have. Lots of changes there, but there's lots of changes in the attitudes of photographers, wouldn't you say? How they
Huh.
approach their work.
Uh, I don't know if I'm that informed on that actually. I mean, I have like the photographers that I know that are friends of mine that I speak with. Um, they seem I don't know. I don't know if I'm that informed on that. I
Okay.
don't. I mean, I speak to people who are my peers, and then I speak to people that are students.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I um, I don't know. Maybe there is.
The thing that I've seen is it not and probably not within your peers, but what I've seen is a lack of historical reference.
I've heard that. People who the people I buy my equipment from. I was having that conversation with them the other day, and I think the reason for that is that they're just younger, um, and they just haven't had enough time to look at stuff.
But
Um, and I think that people are also, um, some of the, I have younger people that work for me, and they're pretty well informed, but they live very much in the now. So it's very much like, what's trending on Tumblr, what's happening on Instagram, what's happening of this very moment is really important to them, and so I like having these people around because although I mean, it's very important for me to know what's going on. I also recognize that whatever's happening now will not be happening tomorrow, because these things kind of go in waves, and I think maybe that's why they're not as informed. But I mean, for sure, the people that I talk to, the people that are my friends and peers, you can like, you can like rattle off all manner of obscure references, and they're going to know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think the part of the reason for it, and um, for what I see is we do have all this technology at our hands. It was hard to stay up on everything in 90 and
Yeah,
5. We had newspapers, we had the black book and the workbook and things like that, but it was, time dated. Everything was time dated. And now with Instagram and Snapchat, etc., there's no
right,
time date anymore. It's immediate, right
right,
now.
right, right. So, but there's a massive difference there. So you're like, especially with Snapchat, you're talking about a medium that's designed to vaporize as soon as you look at it. And with Instagram, it's the same thing. So, how much value does something have that's that disposable? That there's that much of it. I think there is value there because I think it's really useful as discerning cultural trends and cultural markers out of these like huge rivers of imagery that come through.
Right.
But I think that's quite a different thing than looking at looking at a magazine. So the magazine's going to be something that you study that picture for more than the time it takes you to swipe left.
Absolutely.
And it's probably going to stay on your table for a little longer. You're going to think about it. And then, the next step up is, well, it's a book. So, that's going to stay around a lot longer. So these medium are different levels of thoughtfulness go into them.
Exactly. I think the Snapchat and the Instagram and the instant and it'd be funny if we were talking a year from now, there'd probably be another name that we're talking about we don't even know exists yet.
Yeah, no, there will.
Those are communication devices.
Yeah,
Photography
absolutely,
as a
absolutely, 100%.
communication tool.
That's 100%, and that's exactly what they're about. It just says like, this is what I like now, or this is where I am right now, or something about right now.
Well, it's like a
And
lunchtime conversation. It's not recorded. It just you have
right,
a great lunch with somebody. That was really cool, and then it goes away.
and, and I think people use these. Um, they're used by different people in really different ways. So somebody who's a teenager is going to use like Instagram likes and views as a means of direct communication with a specific human being.
Yes.
Same thing with Snapchat in a way that I probably won't. I use my Instagram as kind of just like an auxiliary portfolio, because what people will do is they'll look at my Instagram feed probably before anything. And they're not looking at like picture by picture. They're looking at like the whole stream. So they'll scroll through and they'll see like 2 years of stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. All right, let's look at the pictures big. We'll go to the website. So that's how I use it, because I'm a professional, and the images that I put there are an expression of they're kind of facsimiles of my professional work. For somebody like my wife is in the interiors furniture business, so wherever she travels around the world, she takes pictures of that and puts things up and says, "Oh, I like this," or "This is interesting." And there are other people. It's just like friends and food. Here's my friend. Here's their food. Or here's my pet. This is what's happening today. And so it's a different. I think that these platforms have different channels of communication based on your intention and who the audience is. And I think they vary quite dramatically based on that.
They do indeed. Coming from an earlier time in photography, when of course we photographed, we made negatives, we printed. I think I'm my attitude is archivist. You know, things get archived. I need to
Yeah.
save a print of that. And so when Snapchat came out, it was very hard for me to wrap my arms around, or even Instagram for that matter. You put up a picture and then, 3 weeks later, nobody ever sees it, that type of thing. And it was difficult until I realized that it was just communication and it was
Yeah.
just a cup of coffee basically, and to treat it that way. But my Instagram is also probably more curated than my daughter's Instagram, which is I'm at the mall and here's what I'm having and here's the dog and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, but I bet in your daughter's mind, her Instagram is highly curated, and
oh, yes.
it wouldn't surprise me. She'll put some pictures up, and then like 3 days later, she doesn't like the way they fit in the mix, and she'll take them down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I find that young people who are not in the visual business, they're still very they can be very thoughtful and very directed in the messaging they're putting out there. Some people are just like whatever, but
Yeah,
I've
that's
seen a lot of feeds of people that are like 12, 13 years old, and it's really conscious. There's a real intention to what's happening there.
my daughter came to me with her phone. She has an Android, so it has a chip in it. She goes, "My phone's full of pictures." And I said, "Well, let's take some of those off, and we'll put them on your computer." And she kind of looked at me with, "Why would I want them on my computer?"
Right, right.
Well, that way you can print them. Now, if you think computer got a look, the print was like, "Why would I?"
Right.
I said, "Well, I'll just
Well,
get you a bigger chip." She goes, "Okay." That's it.
yeah, yeah. Well, why? I mean, why would she want the print? What's
And
she gonna do with it?
she's absolutely right.
Yeah,
That's not her world. She's not going to print those
no,
pictures. She doesn't want to. She wants to have them on her phone.
right, right.
And that's a different world, but it's a
Yeah,
fun world. I don't mind being in it. I'm trying to be involved in that and engaged. I don't want to be a fuddy-duddy old guy.
no,
Um,
no, 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 no.
no,
You
that's
have to know about these things.
yeah, that's fun. So, David, I
Yeah,
have a whole bunch of people that come to Lighting Essentials. Would
sure.
you have any tips for someone starting the business today?
In
In
Narrow that question down a little bit.
um, they want to get into being a professional photographer.
Right.
Usually, my demographic is a bit older. I don't have a lot of millennials on my site.
Okay.
They're a bit older, um, and they're looking for uh, an opportunity to shoot. Now, one of the things that I tell them is we've got to work on that body of work,
Right.
A, and B, you've got to have something to say. There's no room anymore for someone who can. And you remember this. You remember if you could work a view camera in 1990, if you could swing and tilt a view camera, you could open a studio and shoot stuff for the department.
Yeah. So that
That's gone.
all right.
That's gone.
So I think what you need there are a few important things here. So um, I think that the if you want to be successful, you need to do something that other people don't do. Otherwise, why is anybody going to? Why would anybody use you, right? So you need to do something specific to you, and and that's in a way quite easy because you are a unique human being. You're the only person on the planet that sees things the way you do, and you're the only one who's had your experiences and your values, all this stuff. So um, that's where it starts. Um, what's important to you? What's your point of view? And the second thing is whatever this thing is that you've decided that is just your the driving force, and that's really what it has to be. I mean, it has to be this like I don't like the word obsession, um, but I think it has to be this. kind of organizing principle, not just in your visual stuff, but like about you, and it gets expressed through your visual work. Now, the thing about that is it has to have relevance. So if, if the thing that you just like love to death is like earthworms, that's awesome. You can be the world's foremost authority on earthworm photography. No one else can do this but you. You just have it dialed in. But, okay, who cares? So you need to have those two things. And those things are not, you're not necessarily going to have them. So I think that's kind of the rub. And I think understanding what's important to you can be rather difficult, because the temptation, of course, is to say, you look at, you get a copy of, like, I just got, what was this thing called, At Edge, I think, something like that, one of these books I got in the mail the other day, and so they want me to advertise in their book, and so I was looking through it, and so, the temptation there is to look through and say, oh, all right, this is this visual trend, and I see this application here. This could be good. So you're naturally influenced by the idea of wanting to be successful and do what's worked in the past. That's makes sense.
Absolutely.
So so it's like, okay, geez, big softbox outside, great, I'll do that. Well, okay, really. Why? Why is anybody call you? So you need to think about that. And I think that I take pictures of people. So that's like interpersonal relations are really the name of that game. Oftentimes if I'm shooting someone of some renown, I'm only going to have a few minutes with them. So it's like I've got to be able to like immediately make that connection, establish trust, and get them to do what I want them to do, and come up with a good picture. So that doesn't happen by barking commands. It also doesn't happen by saying, "What do you want to do?" You got to like negotiate that middle ground, and I think that takes a little while to do that. I think what I've heard I've read a few things people have written on this topic, and Alice Springs, who was married to Helmut Newton.
Yes.
And Alice said that Alice's real name was June. We'll refer to her as June. So June would say you need to photograph your perversions, and what I take that to mean is what's really important to you. So generally that's like the things that you know really well. So people who got like Ryan McGinley in 2000, he was taking pictures of the people that were around him who were other like teenagers behaving badly.
Mm-hmm.
But he photographed them like really beautifully, and he was able to capture this kind of spirit of the whole thing that was really lovely. So I would think about that, and I would think about looking at what really works for you. So I sometimes when I teach, they'll come to me and they'll have these like portfolios of work, and they'll say, well, I can do and they'll give me a menu of like 5 things they can do. And I'll say, well, listen, like, tell me, like, what's really important to you? So, and in a few questions, you can kind of get to the answer there. So it's, some people are very graphic oriented. Some people are really oriented towards expression. Some people are really oriented to the technology of light. And generally, whatever that thing is that interests them it tends to be the thing that they're most successful at, the thing that they're really good at. And what I would say is save yourself a lot of time and just do that. Just like do that thing. Because you're going to have more energy to put into it, and you're probably going to be better at it. And, you know, as my favorite business writer, Peter Drucker, wrote, the secret to success is not improving the things that you're not as good at. You know, so like, you know, I speak a few languages badly. So rather than improving these things to kind of bring everything up to a median, the thing that you're already kind of good at, really focus on that and just become like the very best at that. And don't worry about the rest of it. It's like, who cares? Nobody hires you for the things that you're like above average at, right? You get hired for doing the thing that you are uniquely the very best in the world at. That's the money shot.
Find the thing that you're best at.
Yeah.
Go
and
all
get better at it.
all
And get better and better and better at it.
Yep.
So that you are the best in the world at this thing that you do. And if you know, that's like winning the lottery. So if you become the best in the world at whatever this thing is that you do, and the thing that you do happens to be desirable, well then there's nothing else to say. Like, people just line up, and the main issue in your life becomes scheduling, and that's like a really great problem to have.
Excellent. That's great advice. That's really, really good advice. Thank you, David.
Sure.
Fantastic. One more question. On your portfolio, in your work, I'm sure you have a couple of favorite images, images that you just absolutely love. Would you share one or two of those with us and tell us
All right.
why?
I'm going to tell you a secret, Don.
Yeah.
And I'm probably like every other photographer in the world. Whatever I took most recently is my favorite picture.
There you go. All right, I'm with you.
Okay, it's like, what did I do last week? Oh my God, it's genius. Nothing else compares to it.
Got it.
Which I just, you know, I've been doing this long enough that even though I know that about myself, and I know I'm going to fall into that trap, it's still true. Can't help it. So I just I did the first series that's up on my main website was this series that on stunt players that I shot for Red Bull, and like the first picture is Heidi Moneymaker, who is Scarlett Johansson's stunt double, like really putting the hurt on this big dude, and
Wow.
I love that picture. But I mean, I've been thinking about doing this story. I've been proposing this story for decades. I saw a story that Walter Eos did for the New York Times Magazine, early 90s, Stuntmen fashion stuff. And I thought, oh, this is just really great. And I've proposed this story to pretty much every magazine I've worked for since then. And I finally got somebody to say yes. And so we did this thing, and I think it's like really awesome. Kind of the theme of you know, the driving force in my work is it's really about power. It's really about empowerment, and we spoke a little bit about that with the Ageist project,
Right.
but as I was starting that, it was like I became more aware of that with other people. Then I thought, well, actually, that's kind of a big thing. And when I was a kid, I was like kind of small, and I got picked on, and I felt kind of disempowered. And you know, now that I'm older, it's kind of like that's like my theme. My theme is like it's all about power. Like you know, I went to Naples and photographed gangsters. Like I love shooting like you know, financial masters of the universe for barons, people that are like, you know, bad guys, tough guys, chicks that like put the hurt on people, like Honey or Heidi here is doing to this guy. I just love that thing. So you know, this is one of the once I started to kind of realize that, like I let go of all the young people lifestyle advertising. Like I was going to put on my website like I don't know, I could like easily put up like a few hundred um, things that I've done for money in that realm, and it was just like, yeah, it just didn't jive. It's like, and it was just like, yeah, it's just really lame. Like, you know, I want to see like Heidi flying through the air horizontally and like smacking this 280-pound guy. That's what I want to see. You know.
Now,
Um,
was this a full day shoot, longer, or
yeah, this took a long time to organize. You know, between them saying yes and actually taking the pictures was about 6 months.
wow?
So you know, there's a lot of coordination here. You gotta. These people are all highly paid, in-demand performers, and to get them all in one spot for a day was complicated. And then figuring out like kind of what are we going to do, how's it going to work, like we have to do things that are have like a low risk profile for these guys because you know if they get hurt they're out of work, and a lot of stuff they do is like super dangerous. The stuff that they're doing here isn't dangerous. um, and yeah, it was a lot of I've done I don't know, maybe a dozen jobs for Red Bull, but this is by far the most complicated one I've ever done.
What was your crew like on this?
This is a much bigger crew. So there's Digitech. There were three regular assistants on this. So we had like, you know, we kind of set up where we want to do the action. There weren't any lights on this. It's all done with reflectors. Um, and the reason I didn't want to use the lights, even though some of the new lights recycle really fast, reflectors don't recycle.
Exactly.
So
They don't run out of
um,
batteries either.
they don't run out of batteries. They just, you know, you just kind of set it and they go. And I kind of like the light that comes off them.
Hmm.
Uh, so we used those, and we used a really high frame rate camera. And then on these ones, because I knew that the action, like when you're on an action movie, if this was like a real action movie, they would have like half a dozen cameras rolling on this because you want to make sure that you get it. Because you know, like if you're especially if you're doing like a big car stunt, like it's one go, it's like one and done, that's it. So you got
Yep.
to make sure you get it. So they shoot from like all these kind of different angles, and so that was the approach I did on this. So after we had the light set, rather than the assistants just like sit around and do nothing, everybody got a camera, and I'd load up with a lens, and I'd say, okay, you stand here, this lens, this is your POV, you're over here, you do this, you do this, you do this. So each one of these was covered. Most of the frames that pretty much all the frames that ended up being used were out of my camera that I held, but everybody else, there's a huge amount of content produced here just to be safe
Uh-huh.
because like if I had guessed wrong, like if this was the perfect body position on her, but I wasn't in quite the right position, like you don't get 10 takes on something like this.
No.
Because after she hits this guy, she falls directly down onto a mat, which isn't that far. It's only like 3 or 4 feet, but she's falling like right. You know, you can only do that so many times.
It takes a toll.
So exactly, it takes a toll. So you want to make sure you get it. So a lot of people, a lot of cameras on this.
Very cool. I love that. I love it. Your favorite's your last shot. Yeah, that's kind of how
Yeah,
I've always felt
and,
too.
and I think that these pictures are really, you know, they're a very physical, dynamic um, manifestation of my power thing, um, and, and so I really like that. That so a lot of the other stuff that I do, it's more of a, a quieter, more intense kind of thing, um, and these are much more like it's the same to me. It's the same impetus. It's the same point of view, but it's just really colorful and dynamic and kind of a action, almost comic book kind of way.
What's up next for David Harry Stewart? What's any big projects coming up?
Well, I have a big, let's see. So this week, regularly work for this chain of gyms, and we're doing a thing, some stuff that's kind of in this ballpark, this kind of action ballpark stuff that we're going to do on Thursday. And then I do some kind of personal commission stuff for people. So people will come to me and they'll commission me to do a portrait of themselves for a lot of reasons, family reasons or
Sure.
business reasons. So I have that on Friday, and then on Sunday I have 8 pictures for Ageist, which will be more of a fashion style kind of gig that we're going to do in downtown LA. I think that'll be fun.
The Aegis project keeps you busy, I'm sure, when you're um, not shooting uh, for the agencies, etc. Do you ever shoot just personal work other
It's
than
all
the
the
Aegis?
same. It's all the same to me.
It's all the same?
Um, it's all the same. You know, it's like it's if I'm doing a pharma ad, that's not the same. That's like a different ballpark. You know, like a lot of the thing about big advertising jobs is the guardrails are really tight. So, you know, these are layouts that have been sold through various different levels of different corporations, and they've gone through legal, and you kind of have to do whatever that is, and the majority of your responsibility is one of production. So how do you get like the right people and the right stuff to make this thing happen?
Right.
And then there's a certain amount of like creative input that, I can say, okay, well, I want the light to be a little harder or a little softer, or we want this thing, but it's the guardrails are pretty tight. And when I do this kind of thing, there's still guardrails, but it's wider. And the Ageist, Ageist, I'm the creative director on Ageist. I'm involved in the qualitative research. I'm involved in the business pitches and in servicing the clients for Ageist and in the design of the newsletter. So that's kind of that's a big package there. And then with my other work, that's also a big package. It's
Yeah.
like I gotta have like I've got like two really large full-time jobs, but they're great. I mean, it's like awesome. Like my mom will say to me, "Oh, you need to like take a break and slow down and relax." It's like, why would I do that? This is like I love what I'm doing. Why am I going to not do that? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I understand that. David, it's been fantastic. I don't want to keep you any longer. I
Yeah,
know there's
absolutely.
things to do. I so appreciate you coming out and sharing this stuff with me. It's been an excellent interview. And stay
Sure.
with me as I close off here.
Sure.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out. David Harry Stewart, dhstewart.com is the website. And thanks again, David.
You bet.